I think the position of Ayala Land in the property development sector, maybe one that differentiates us, is we're really an estate developer.
With Manny Villar, Forbes 13th richest in the Philippines with a net worth of 1.5 billion pesos.
Alin yung pinakamagandang negosyo sa ilalim po ng FDC?
East West Bank is a big contributor, and also the property companies, PhilInvest Land, PhilInvest Alabang, those are the big contributors.
So in most countries around the world, governments are the ones responsible for building cities. I'm talking about planning roads, the sewage, the transport, the zoning. That's how livable cities are born. But in the Philippines, it's not the government. It's actually mega corporations. So while local governments are drowning in corruption, traffic, and failed urban planning, there's companies like Ayala and Filinvest and Villar that are raising the standard of living and designing communities that are actually working. If you want proof of this, just look at Alabang. What used to be farmland is now one of Metro Manila's most livable districts. And not because of the politicians, but because corporations had the vision and the money to build it from scratch. And this is the story of corporations and not governments, and how they're shaping the future of Philippine city. And this isn't just a rosy story that doesn't come with controversy and greed. So stay tuned, you won't want to miss this. Alabang is known for healthy living and families. It has wide roads, its master planned villages, hospitals, parks, and even its own central business district. In the 1970s, Ayala Corporation, which was already famous for shaping Makati, saw potential in the south.
Back then, Alabang was just a farmland owned by the Mandrigo family. In 1975, the Mandrigos offered their land to Ayala. But instead of simply buying it, Enrique Zobel, who led Ayala Corporation at the time, proposed a partnership. Both families agreed to turn over 600 plus hectares of land into something new, a full community plan from scratch.
And to get an idea of what level of infrastructure they had to build to make this whole thing work, they had to build their own sewage treatment plant. Now, that might not seem like a big deal, but in most countries, that's the government's work.
Construction began in 1976, and just a year later, the first lots in what was called New Alabang Village sold out almost immediately. From the start, the plan wasn't just about building houses. A large portion of the land was set aside for parks, churches, schools, and open spaces. Ayala's most interesting move was giving prime lots to education groups, a strategy that quietly shaped the entire character of the South. Over time, this concentration of top schools made the South a magnet for families. Parents moved here not just for space or cleaner air, but for education and community life. More than a real estate project, Alabang was built around a simple idea. If you plant schools, families will follow and communities will grow.
But Ayala wouldn't be the only one shaping Alabang's future. In the 90s, the government auctioned off 244 hectares of the Alabang stock farm. And everyone assumed that Ayala was going to win that bid and expand their empire. But instead, Filinvest, led by Andrew Gotianam, won the bid. And the interesting thing is, the Gotianams didn't come from old land dynasties. They weren't massive developers at the time. The story of Andrew was that he came from China in 1927 as a young boy, as a war survivor, and he rebuilt his life salvaging naval ships. And later, they became one of the biggest financing operations for second-hand cars. And like most families who become wealthy, they pivoted into real estate. And their mission was to build affordable housing for Filipinos. And then came their biggest, boldest move, which was building Filinvest City on the stock farmland. They're setting up infrastructure for offices, hospitals, schools, and they were building tons of parks, everything a modern central business district needed. And they just recently won the bid for PLDT's new tech campus, which is going to be huge. So they went from salvaging ships to building cities, and they're proof that something massive in the Philippines, like bold corporations, can outmaneuver even the most powerful players and reshape entire communities. But no story of the South is complete without Manny Villar.
Senator Manuel Villar insists there was no irregularity in the C5 road extension project. Villar said there was no realignment since the C5 road is different from the TRB toll road.
billionaire, former Senate president, and real estate tycoon. Through Vista Land, Villar has quietly become one of the biggest landowners in Alabang and beyond. But his rise hasn't come without controversy. While in government, a major road was allegedly rerouted and it cut straight through Villar's own land. And the result? Obviously, property's value just shot up. In the stock market, if this was equity investment, this would probably be considered insider trading. In real estate, it's legal, but many might still consider it unethical. The second controversy came during the land revaluation scandal. Vista Land revalued its land bank from when they purchased it for approximately 1,300 pesos per square meter to 345,000 pesos per square meter. That's 263 times increase. And they were claiming a 1 trillion paper profit without ever selling a single square meter. But luckily, the SEC blocked it and said it didn't meet reporting standards. Some supporters called him a genius businessman. Some critics called it political profiteering. But whatever you think of Villar, here's the truth. With over 3,500 hectares spanning Villar cities across Muntinlupa, Las Piñas, and Cavite, he has the power to reshape the South at a scale that few can match. For better or worse, Manny Villar is proof that in the Philippines, it's corporations, even those born out of politics, that can dictate how cities grow.
So how much land have they covered?
The biggest is Ayala Land with 4,500 hectares across New Valley, Broadfield, and Ara. Then there is Vista Land, or Manny Villar's 3,500 hectares in Villar City. Now, of course, there's PhilInvest, and they're anchored by its 244-hectare Filinvest City, which is now the country's largest LEED certified township. There's other players as well, such as St. Lucia's with their vast residential land banks. Then there's Mega World's aggressive township expansion. And SM Prime is pumping 100 billion into projects by 2030. These corporations aren't just selling condos. They're building entire ecosystems. And when they do succeed, land values and the quality of life explode. Alabang is more than just history. It's a blueprint of what developers could do with undeveloped land and taking it into a model city. And it sets the tone for how corporations and not governments are building the next wave of Philippine cities. The pattern is undeniable. As Metro Manila drowns in its own congestion and failed governance, developers are building entire cities designed to stand on their own. So here's the real question we need to ask ourselves. If we can't trust the government to shape livable cities, can we trust the corporations to do it for us? Because like it or not, they already are. If this story opened your eyes, hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe, because in the next video, we'll dive into these new mega developments and what they mean for the future of the Philippines. So see you in the next one.